Welcome back to the weekly recap. I'm Matt Wacker. A very scary situation on the evening of January 22nd as Interstate 44 was closed in both directions after multiple tractor trailers crashed near mile marker 184. One of those big rigs was carrying hazardous materials posing a threat to human life. MoDOT acted swiftly to alert drivers to stay off the interstate and use alternate routes until the spill could be maintained. The highway was closed for roughly 2.5 hours. Getting up close and personal with an alpaca is an interesting experience. One couple's Rolla area farm is a hub of facts and fleece, showcasing the animal and its products to visitors. We spent some time with Clarissa Weisner and her animals at Sutton at Home Alpacas.
Well, alpacas are members of the camelid family. They are the fifth largest or smallest camelid, depending on how you look at it. They're actually related to camels. So they come from South America in the Altiplano region, which is Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. And they've been domesticated for like 6,000 years. They were used by the Incans to provide cloth for the Incan kings. And that was one of the ways that they had wealth, is because how much alpaca clothing that they had and all of that kind of thing. So they were domesticated for their fiber only. They're not beast of burdens. You don't ride them or anything like that. They are strictly a fiber animal, very much like a sheep.
Well, speaking of South America, this is not exactly their original habitat. How do alpacas thrive in mid-Missouri?
Well, the alpacas that we have aren't directly from South America. They've been in the United States since the late 80s. And so they have come to adapt to our areas. We have to shear them, and we try to shear them in early spring. Like our shearing is going to be April 14th this year, and we shear them to like about 1/4 of an inch of fleece on them and let it grow for that. And so that during the summer months they have very short fleece, but we also have huge fans in our barn that they can sit in front of to move the air around to keep them cooler. Mm-hmm. We also take a water hose out there and we spray them down, and occasionally we have kiddie pools with water in them, and they'll get in them and lay in them, and you'll see things like that. Yeah.
Talk about your history. Why an alpaca farm in Rolla, Missouri?
That's a very good question. In 2013, I was finishing up my PhD in chemistry. I had been working on that like night and day because I was doing a 40-hour-a-week job. And my husband knows that if I'm idle, I just go crazy. I go stir crazy. So he thought it would be a really good idea once I finished if he would get me some animals. When the kids were little, we had 4-H, we had sheep and pigs. And so I learned how to do a little bit with the fiber. We went to a home show a couple years before that. They had alpacas there, and I said, I really wish I had some alpacas. And so him and my daughter cooked up this idea to buy me alpacas for Christmas in 2013. The story was that they were going to go pick up goats from my daughter, who at the time was raising goats. And so when they brought them home on the 23rd of December, they said, come out and look at the goats. And I said, I'll look at your goats later. I said, no, Mom, you got to come out and look at the goats now. So I went out there. They threw open the door of this trailer. I looked in there, and there was a couple bales of hay. And behind the bales of hay were these long-necked creatures looking out at me. And I'm like, I thought to myself, I said, I don't know who sold you these goats, but those are not goats. And then my husband said, Merry Christmas. And I was like looking at him, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Well, the thing is that we had a horse barn, but we had no fencing up. Didn't know anything about how to take care of these animals. So it was a very steep learning curve. And that was he bought me 3 alpacas, and we still have those first 3 alpacas out in the yard.
They're not pets.
Some people have them as pets, but they're not what you want to call, they're farming. They are livestock, but some of them are a little more friendly than others.
I read that they cannot deal with being alone.
No. When you have an alpaca, you need to have at least another one because they are herd animals. And because of that, then they will die of loneliness.
Look at that. Is that the actual fur?
That's their actual
Or
fleece.
is it called fleece?
It's called fleece. This is called fleece. This is from one of our babies out there. And this is the softest it's ever going to be. And how do you tell softness? You tell softness by the actual size of each one of these fibers, okay? And you can see that it's very, very thin and wispy there. And so this is the finest this animal is ever going to be. This is a cria fleece. So this comes off the animal. And once we take it off the animal, then we go in and we pick out the best parts of it. And we take those best parts of it and we send it to a mill or a hand spinner. And so then they'll spin it into yarn. And then when the yarn comes back, it looks like this. And so once you have this is a sellable product. This is also somewhat of a sellable product, but it's raw, so you don't get as much money for it. When you pay to have it processed like this, you can sell this to like knitters and crocheters and weavers and those kinds of fiber artisans, okay?
Is this dyed?
This is not dyed. Alpacas come in 22 natural colors. So yes, so you don't have to dye them. But if you want the vibrant blues and greens and yellows, then you're going to want to dye them. But most of them that are earth tone like this is their natural color. And so once you have it made into yarn, then you can contract with other people, or if you're really good and have lots of time, then you can make these items yourself. All of these items up here were knitted by a local knitter. This is from hand-spun yarn. And hand-spun yarn sometimes is not as what you get consistent as this. And so this is from a knitter from Arkansas. And these little bitty baby bear hats, they are so cute.
Oh, that's cute. Little bear ears.
Yeah. They're made from a knitter in Salem who also makes these slouch hats. This is a knit one, and then this is a crocheted one. And so they're very, very soft.
Soft.
Yeah. And the more you use this or knit with this, the softer it actually becomes. Since 2008, when the price dropped on all collectibles. So alpacas, the average price for an alpaca prior to that was probably $15,000. Yes. And so now you can buy a really nice alpaca for maybe $2,500. When we got into alpacas, for some strange reason, I started collecting alpacas. It was kind of like potato chips. You can't just have one. So I got in contact with these people from Mississippi that were going out of the business because they were in their 80s. And so one July, we went down there, picked up 14 alpacas, 2 dogs, and drove all the way back to Missouri in the dead of night because it was so hot. We didn't want to travel during the day. Yeah. We got home, unloaded everybody. We were exhausted. We went up to bed, and then we looked out. And see, dogs are typically not a friend of alpacas, right? And so we got up, and I looked down there, and I said, oh, my gosh, there's a dog in the pen with the alpacas. So we jumped out of the bed, and we ran down there to find out. And one of the animals that we had brought back with us was pregnant, and she'd had her baby. We didn't know. That was our first baby.
So that was a miserable trip for that llama.
Yeah.
Don't put that on.
Ah! Annie bit me.
Warrants have been issued for 4 people from West Plains and 1 from Dora after they were caught living in a cabin without permission for a month. Jason York, Taylor Davis, Ashton Rader, Kirsten Welch, and Gloria Carper are sought with bail set at $5,000 apiece. Property owners reported a motorcycle parked outside, several dogs, and a Confederate flag waving on the front porch. Other charges include stealing and property damage. A Lebanon woman was struck and seriously injured on Gentry Road around 4:30 in the morning on January 17th. 36-year-old Jessica Poole was transported to Mercy Hospital in Springfield after a driver hit her as she was laying in the middle of the road. Poole's motive for doing this is unclear. Ozark Actors Theater in Rolla has a new managing director. It was announced last week that Laura Light has joined the staff. Laura has been a staple in Rolla's theater community for decades, and some might remember that she even helped launch this show back in the day. Our congratulations to Laura as she takes on her new position. That's all for now. Thanks for watching the weekly recap. I'll see you next time.
You've probably seen this in Lebanon, Rolla, Salem, Thayer, or West Plains. Advertisements that seem too good to be true or have questionable claims. Since Better Business Bureau's inception more than 100 years ago, BUV has been a staunch advocate for an ethical marketplace. Here's a fake ad where you can see a number of claims we want you to question. For example, if an ad says the sale's only going on today, then that should be true. After Black Friday last year, BV heard from some frustrated consumers who found sales at certain stores weren't really sales at all. In fact, some stores actually raised prices on Black Friday. So always read the fine print. If an offer is only available with a credit score of 800, then it might be really hard for you to qualify. So the last thing you want to do is, whether you're showing up in line to purchase new furniture or a phone or something else, to wait an hour or a couple hours and of course not be able to qualify for it. So we want for you to do your research. Be very careful. Before you make a buying decision, you can go to bv.org. You can see what a company's rating is, what customers are saying about it. You can see any kind of complaints it has. And of course, you can see whether or not it's accredited with us. Always remember, bv.org.